లో రికార్డ్ పెట్టుకుంటారు. కాపీ సేవ్ చేస్తారా ఎలాగైనా?
ఎస్ సార్.
స్టార్ట్ అంటే రికార్డింగ్ పెట్టు, ఓబీఎస్ ఓపెన్ చేయండి ఒకసారి. స్టార్ట్ రికార్డింగ్ రైట్. మీరు అయిపోయిన తర్వాత నాకు ఒకసారి ఫోన్ చేయండి.
ఓకే సార్. Hi guys. So I'm here today from Shikara Academy to give you a quick overview about Tspsc Group 1, mainly history. Before I can give you a strategy to approach and a plan to approach, let me give you a mock analysis about 3 different questions from Group 1 Indian history. I took a mock question like elaborate distinguished features of Shatavahana administration. See, there is a golden rule when answering questions like these. There's only one golden rule. Always try to answer what is being asked, not what you know. In every question lo, introduction, structures are important. Introduction, body, and conclusion. This question is specifically asking you distinguished features. I mean the features which are specific and unique to Shatavahana administration. When we try to learn about Shatavahana administration, I started the answer with an introduction like there are multiple sources to understand about Shatavahana administration, like Shatavahana coins, Shatavahana inscriptions, Shatavahana literature. And then I just went straight into the body of the answer. I mean, king obviously in Shatavahana was the highest official of the government, and office of the kingship was hereditary. Unique to Shatavahana is not having the practice to assume high sounding titles. Shatavahana kings did not believe in divine rights. And Raje Devudu Anna theory, these people never really went through. And they carried their administration according to Dharma Shastras and according to the social norms of that period. The king himself participated in the battles. This is unique to Shatavahanas and was the commander-in-chief of his forces. Okay, 3-4 points which are important, specific and unique to Shatavahana. That's enough. And every Shatavahana king used to have a council of ministers. The king always regarded the people as his children and always looked after their welfare. I mean, Shatavahana kings tried to create a welfare state. Kingdom was vast, and because Shatavahana gurinchi rasetappudu, if you don't mention feudalism, your answer is never really complete. The Shatavahana kings divided their empire into a number of feudal chiefs. Andulonu 3 grades. This is special to Shatavahana because probably Shatavahana kings were the only kings who had the grading system within their feudal lords. Every Shatavahana king had the right to impose taxes and also to strike coins, particularly the feudal chief Raja. Raja belonged to the highest grade. He had the right to impose taxes and also to strike coins. The kingdom itself, Shatavahana kingdom itself, was divided into provinces and janapadas. Provinces and janapadas. This point special, and the highest official was Amasya. The villages in Shatavahana were administered by Gramika. There were special officials to help the king. Out of them, obviously, most important was Senapati, Mahabhoja, Koshadhyaksha, Rajaduta, Amatya. Now, what I'm giving you is not about just the answer, but giving you a lot. ఇప్పుడు ఈ పేజ్ షీట్లో ఉన్న ఆన్సర్స్లో, I mean, in the sheet that I'm showing you, the word points at which I'm giving you, even 50% of this, if you remember, recollect and write in your answer, that should be sufficed. That should be more than enough in your preparation. It's extremely important that one maintains this. ఈ numbers చాలా important. The number of answers, the number of the amount of words that you're going to write, though that becomes an extremely important practice when you're writing about any mains answers. Shatavahana kings also had special officials called Uparakshita. They had special officials called Uparakshita, and ఇవి కూడా ఈ ఆఫీస్ కూడా యూనిక్ అండ్ డిస్టింగ్విష్ టు శాతవాహనస్. దెన్ యూ కెన్, if you need, you can try talk about Nagara Sabhas, Grama Sabhas. This basically builds up what I call fodder. ఇది ఎప్పుడైనా if you go through the point of where your word limit has gone down or your word limit has gone up, అట్లాంటప్పుడు then this can actually fill your word limit. Talk about Shatavahana military, how their military had foot soldiers or cavalry, elephants, etc. Managing your time is very important. ఇప్పుడు ఈ ఆన్సర్లో, in this particular answer, for a mid-level answer, for something, a question which is neither too long or too short, I've given you a straight point. I've given you a straight few amount of questions, a few amount of numbers. That's it. For something which is not really too much into the entire answer style. Obviously, they kept a very regiment posted in every village for maintenance of peace and order, and they maintained expensive rural inhabitants. Now, conclusion, you can always write this. Thus, while Shatavahana administration developed, was unique to the Shatavahana state, best fit to the Shatavahana traditions of feudalism, and eventually they became the school of administration on which the later kings like Guptas and Harsha developed their system of administration. So, as much as possible, do not try to give any opinions or any suggestions in your conclusion. You're supposed to give a conclusion where basically the idea is you're writing a body and you're giving an end close to your answer. You're giving a closure to your answer. Ante. It is not expected that you give a very detailed opinion again in your conclusion. Another question, style of approach I'll give you regarding examine the nature of revolt of 1857. This has been a previous year question. Some old questions have come around this part. You can start the answer by saying, giving an introduction. The 1857 revolt was often termed as a Sepoy mutiny or the Indian mutiny against the British rule, against the company rule. Okay. And then you can say scholars, historians do not have any unanimity regarding the nature of the revolt. I mean, there are some who call it the first war of independence. There's some who say it was neither the first nor a war of independence. And for some, they just say it was a Mohammedan revolt against the British rule. In fact, up in the 1950s and 60s, most historians, after independence, did a lot of research and a lot of dispute about this nature of the 1857 revolt. I mean, how should people perceive 1857 revolt? This question is actually coming from that. All British historians, in particular Sir John Lawrence and Seeley, Henry William H. E. Seeley, they generally viewed Sepoy mutiny as the Sepoys refused to use greased cartridges to the Enfield rifles and opposed the move. In fact, Britishers have tried to minimize the grievances. British historians have done attempts to minimize the grievances of Indians and to restrict it only to a section of army's revolt. Further, British tried to portray civil disturbances as the actions of selfish vested interest of landlords and princes. Some historians even went to the point of calling it a Mohammedan instigation against British. Their attempts to prove that colonial rule, if not welcomed, was detested, as many Indian historians argue. And then you can, if you want, you can use one or two words, because they are asking you to understand, give a detail of nature of the 1857 revolt. So some historians called it a religious war. See, the best part is you may not need to write the historian name. You don't have to really emphasize and worry about the historian name. Some historians called it religious war against Christianity. Some had an opinion that it was a conflict of civilization and barbarism, where some, like James historian, even went to the point of calling it a conspiracy hatched by Hindus and Muslims against the British. So the nature of the rebellion, nature of the 1857 revolt has always been not yet determined. For some, the mutiny was very brutal. For people like Tarachand, it was war for nation's independence. R.C. Majumdar concluded that it is difficult to avoid the conclusion that so-called First War of Independence, the First War of Independence of 1857, is neither the first nor national nor a war of independence, as it was not pre-planned and was very limited to certain pockets of India. You can also use the argument of the 1970s. This is coming from Romila Thapar's book. Where there was many attempts done to study Sepoy mutiny or national revolt. As such, you can then go for a conclusion saying, as such, historians have always been inconclusive about the nature of the revolt. From the approaches they've taken to the understanding many historians have had, at this point, it is generally believed that it is very difficult to make a generalization of the 1857 event. The nature of the event has become so emotive that it gives scope to multiple perspectives. Or you can simplify this saying, the nature of the 1857 revolt and the process of 1857 revolt was so impacting and so emotive that multiple perspectives have developed about this revolt. Give this point in conclusion. So you are neither closing the question, you are now opening the question, you are just leaving it as an open end. So let whoever is reading get through this. Another question I'll give you, small discussion about socio-religious reform movement, which started as a minor stream in the first decade of 19th century, eventually evolved into a major water flow. You can simply start by giving the way it all started with Raja Ram Mohan Roy's Atmiya Sabha, and then eventually how it exploded into Tattva Bodhini Sabha and Pradhana Samaj and Rahanuma Mazdayazan Sabha, and how social religious reforms just exploded across India. So what started in Bengal as a small reactionary movement, eventually within the first 50-60 years just moved into different parts of the country, acting or protesting against different socio-religious issues. 19th century was a period of transition, and the socio-religious reform movement generally was started by intelligentsia. The movement acted as a catalyst for the emergence of the sense of nationalism among Indians. It all began in Bengal, spread to other parts of India. This is what your question's keyword is. Your answer's keyword. Where you are saying it all started as a minor stream in Bengal and eventually evolved into a major water flood across the country. You can talk about Raja Ram Mohan Roy, how he is the pioneer of the socio-religious reform movement, who acclaimed the link between the fading past and the dawning future. You can talk about how Roy described the arc which spanned the gulf between ancient caste and modern humanity. Give a little more detail. Then eventually, if possible, talk about Derozio, how Derozio moved it to the masses, and eventually people like M.G. Ranade and Dr. Atmaram Pandurang. So you can go for this, where even the number of issues social-religious reformers acted on expanded by time. So what they all started with a small issue of, say, widow remarriage and ending of child marriage. And then by the time of late 19th century, by some 1875, 1878, There were even issues like casteism, untouchability, caste discrimination. Everything had become it just exploded. So then you can go for a conclusion. Social religious reform movements used the spread of education, Indian and Western news or education as a panacea for social transformation, and the movement was also against economic exploitation, social discrimination of backward communities, and women's emancipation from the bondage of slavery. Here you can add a little saying that social religious reform movement was not only geographically diverse, it was also very diverse in the number of topics it stood for. I mean, what started as merely protest against a couple of social issues eventually moved into issues like economic exploitation and discrimination of the backward communities, all the way to women empowerment and women emancipation. So that's why the movement, which started as a minor stream in the first decade of 19th century, eventually evolved into major water flow engulfing the entire territorial borders of India and the social blocks of India. You can conclude it this way. What started as a minor stream engulfed all the economic blocks of India and social blocks of India. So these were the three questions which I just wanted to give you a slight idea of what standard currently Tspsc is sort of going through. See, it's very important in your Tspsc syllabus or in your group 1 syllabus. There are certain topics which are extremely important, and 90% of the students, when they are preparing for groups, they are preparing for any competitive exam, their biggest challenge is writing, not just content. See, the idea is most people acquire content in time they study. I mean, as people study, they acquire content. You go through different books, you read a lot of books, you understand a lot of things, you will eventually build up content. The problem is tailoring the content to fit the answer. Like, see, for example, this question, examine the nature of 1857 revolt. The speciality for this question is, the question is not asking you what was 1857 revolt. It is not asking you what are the causes of 1857 revolt. It is not asking you what is the impact of 1857 revolt. You are supposed to answer what is the nature of 1857 revolt. And if you don't answer that, then your question answer is waste. Then all your attempt will go vague. And specifically, there's one golden principle I put for every mains answer writing is, don't beat around the bush. And always emphasis on quality than quantity. I see, for example, a 250 word question, if the answer is being mentioned as 250 words, it doesn't mean you have to write 249 words. A 250 word answer can also be a 100 word answer. As long as you are justifying the answer, you are writing all the content which is needed. 90% of the students do this mistake. They do not end up answering the entire thing because they are so worried about filling the 250 words. You remember I told you in the beginning a word called fodder? People end up adding fodder unnecessarily. This year particularly, in your paper, in your history, I suggest it is very important to focus on all India, the farmer issues, farmers' role in Indian national struggle. Like, for example, All India Kisan Sabha, Kirti Kisan Party, Krishak Praja Party, Punjab Unionist Movement, also women empowerment and tribal empowerment. Women empowerment and tribal empowerment. Simultaneously, the impact of Britishism. Impact of British rule in India. This also remains a very important aspect in the mains preparation. Write tests, attend the test series, write the maximum number of tests, and please do get evaluated them. The first step in success is failure. Most students tend to miss this. The very first step in success is failure. This year, paper 2, particularly Advent of Islam, growth and contribution of literature in medieval India, growth and establishment of the British Empire, communal forces, the growth of communalism also remains an extremely important thing which we will be covering in the regular discussions at regular patterns. Okay. And personalities. This year, focus on personalities a lot. Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. In the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, if you go to their website, there are many leaders whose name you don't know. But they played a very important and significant role in India's independence struggle. You need to identify them, be prepared with them. Personalities questions do come in Tspsc mains. So that's it from my side here. This is Ranganathan SVN Kondala, and do write the tests and get them evaluated. All the best. I'll see you in the next session. Thank you. You have a nice day. Bye-bye.